All right, guys, here we are on day 2 of the 6 trig functions. Yes, 6, no longer 3 like you learned in geometry class. We have this new vocab word. This is a funny kind of word, quadrantal angles. That means that the angle lies on like the axis for one of the quadrants. Okay, so 0 degrees, if you think about what that means and where that is, 0 degrees is right here. Remember, and this one is 90, and this one is 180, and this one's 270, and then 360, and we can keep going around and around and around. 0 degrees is right here. What we have to think of in terms of this 0 degrees is what is the x value and what is the y value at that point. Okay, so we went right something, and we didn't go up or down at all. That means that the y value is 0, correct? But what is the x value? So we went to the right something, and just keep in mind that we are discussing the unit circle. So I'm just going to use 1 unit as the radius for the circle, and as we move around the circle, the radius is always 1 unit no matter where it is. So here it's 1 unit, here it's 1 unit, here it's 1 unit, here. On any of the quadrants also, it's always going to be 1 unit. That means my x value is 1. Okay, so if I know the x comma y, then I for sure can do all of the trig functions. Okay, so I'm going to start out with sine of theta. And remember, my theta is 0 degrees, which puts us right here. And this is the ordered pair that we're using, 1 comma 0. Then what's the y value there? 0. What's the r value? What's the radius? Radius. Well, no matter where I drew it, remember I drew this entire circle, and all of these radii that I drew around here are 1 because the radius of the unit circle is always 1. 0 divided by 1 is 0. Now let's try cosine. Cosine theta. Cosine is x over r. What's the x value? 1. What's the r value? The radius is always 1. So we just get 1. And how about tangent? Tangent is y divided by x. The y value is 0. The x value is 1. So 0. Okay, so it's kind of weird, 0, 1, 0. Like, it is a little bit of a pattern that you'll be able to hopefully eventually have memorized, but you can always think about it if you get confused. Remember, we got to do the other 3 also. So we have cosecant theta, we have secant theta, and we have cotangent theta. Okay, so what happens when I do the reciprocal of 0 over 1? That means 1 over 0, which is not 0. It's undefined. Okay, so I actually put undefined. What happens when I flip or do the reciprocal of 1 over 1? I just get 1 over 1 again, which is 1. And the same thing for tangent. Flip 0 over 1, we get undefined again. Okay, try this one. And pause the video and then check all your answers. Did you get this? Okay, 270. Let's think about where that is. This is 0, this is 90, this is 180, this is 270. So I'm going to put a dot down here. That dot, I did not move left or right at all, therefore my x value is 0. But I went down. That means I have a negative number down here. And remember that the radius of the circle, no matter where I draw the circle, is always 1. So this is my radius. It also happens to be my y value. So negative 1. So using sine y over r, remember that the radius is always 1. The radius of a circle is a positive number. My y value down here is a negative number because it's on the negative y-axis. Cosine is x over r. The x value is 0. The r is always 1. 0 divided by anything is 0. Tangent is y over x. The y is negative 1. The x is 0. That is undefined. And then you can do your reciprocals to come up with these 3. Okay? Now, did you notice that I have this handy dandy little chart down here that gives you all the quadrantal angles? So we just did 0. You can check all your answers for everything that we did above. And we also did 270. Here's all these. No, you do not have to memorize this because we drew it and we figured it out in our heads. You guys are going to have so many things that you have to memorize that if you don't have to memorize it, then don't. Just think about it, okay? Note these can always be found in the calculator. Make sure your calculator is in degree mode. So when you hit the mode button, make sure degree is highlighted and not that weird word radian, which we will learn in a few chapters. But this chart, you can try any of them. You can do 90 degrees, you can do 180, you can do 360, and then it just cycles. Notice that 0 and 360 are the exact same because that dot would be in the same position. But you can check any of those. Here's this, and I want you to be able to think about it and not memorize this chart. That would be way too much in your head, okay? What I want to do is skip these 3 problems, and I want to go all the way down here to the bottom to finish off. We will talk about these 3 in class, okay? So we have this weird problem, number 4 and number 5. If n is an integer, evaluate each expression. And I bet you guys remember what integers are. They're just numbers on a number line, whole numbers, like 1, 2, 3, on and on and on. Also negative numbers. If you get a little bit confused, what I recommend doing here is starting with an integer. Like, okay, fine, let's pretend that n equals 1. So if I plug in 1 right here, I get cosine 2 plus 1 is 3 times 90. So that's cosine of 270. Oh, we did cosine of 270 above, didn't we? But don't memorize it. Please don't look at that chart. That chart is there as a tool for you not to memorize, but just to have there for your reference. What is this dot location down here? That is 0, -1. And cosine is x over r, and the x value of that dot is 0, and r is always 1, so I get 0. Okay, let's check and make sure. What if I did n equals 2? I guess I'll do that over here, because I'm kind of out of room. What happens if I plug in a 2 right there? I get cosine of 4 plus 1 of 5 times 90. So cosine of 450, which happens to be, if you get confused, you can always draw it, but 450 is 360 degrees plus another 90, so actually up here. Okay? So that means that ordered pair is 0, 1. And again, what's the x value and what's the r value? 0 over 1, which again is 0. So that means, my friends, we got 0 for both of these. That means the answer for the cosine of 2n plus 1 times 90, where n is an integer, is 0. Kind of confusing. Let's try one more. I'm going to do the same exact strategy here for tangent. I'm going to say, okay, fine. What if n equals 1? Plug in a 1 there. That means tangent of 180. Okay, what if n equals 2? That means tangent of 2 times 180 is 360. Okay, well, tangent of 180, where's that? That dot is right here. That x value is -1, and the y value is 0, and the tangent is y divided by x. So 0 divided by -1, so 0. Tangent of 360, let's try that one. 360 is here. What is that ordered pair? That means right 1, up and down 0. Tangent is y divided by x, so 0 divided by 1 equals 0. That means the tangent of n times 180, where n is an integer, is also 0. Okay, no, they're not always going to be 0. They could be 1s or -1s or undefined, as you can see in the chart above. But we just did 2 problems where just plug in some numbers for integers for n and figure out what the answer is going to be. Okay, the last part, determine whether the ratio in the given quadrant is positive or negative. So I love these. Okay. Do you know where quadrant 2 is? Let's recap real quick before we move on into these problems. Here's our coordinate plane. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4, okay? So in quadrant 2, which is here, that means that the x value is negative, right? And the r value is always positive because the radius is always positive, because having a negative radius in geometry doesn't make any sense. So what is a negative number divided by a positive number, it is always negative. Okay, so that's all these questions are asking you. In quadrant 2, is x over r positive or negative? It's negative. Okay, what about number 7? I'm going to draw this really quick. Quadrant 3 is here. Okay, in quadrant 3, the y values are negative and the r value, the radius, is always positive. So again, in quadrant 3, y divided by r is negative. Let's do this last one, quadrant 4, which is here. In quadrant 4, the x value is positive, but the y value is negative. A negative divided by a positive is negative. Okay, so that's all for today, you guys. I skipped 3 problems above that I want to do in class together. Bring your questions to class. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.